All right. While I'm doing this, while I'm thinking about it, let's just double check and make sure I get the chat set up now so that I don't have to stop and derail things. I do have one thing I want to bring to your attention. I have one thing that I just want to point out to you. It's small. It's nothing, crazy or anything. But where the heck do I press this button? I'm going to guess it's right there. Okay, there we go. Fair enough. Yep, delightful. Okay, so one thing I wanted to point out, you know who's still reading magazines, like actual physical magazines? Boomers. I just found this out. They're still reading magazines, and do you know the number one magazine they're reading? It's a finance magazine. It's about retirement, which makes sense since they're the last group that will probably have retirements. Thanks, boomers. It just really struck me about today, probably more than any other day lately. I was really just struck by the schism between different groups, whether it's by finance or by age or by time or by habit or by consideration, because I talked to some writers today who were, well, to put it mildly, they were misinformed. They were misinformed as to how things work because they were operating from some older playbook. And I'm hopeful that today, with what we're doing, something special. It's still Q&A, but now we're doing some more. I'll talk about it in a second. But I'm hopeful that I'll be able to point some things out to people. But it really just kind of stunned me when I was told, hey, people still read Kiplinger magazine. And I thought to myself, that's a thing my dad used to read. Jesus, how fucking old is that shit? And it's still going. It just irritates the shit out of me. Blows my mind. All right, let's do something other than boomer-tastic times and get this thing started, shall we? Here we go.
All right. Just remember what I've taught you.
The fuck is that?
Hey, yo.
All right. Well, here we are in all our messy camera glitchy glory. I've tried like 4 different ways to unglitch this camera. I know exactly why it's doing it. It's because I've plugged it into this plug because I'm out of plugs on the back of the machine. So we'll just have to agree that periodically this thing is going to glitch, at least when it's in widescreen. Hello, everybody. Hi, how are you? I hope you're doing well. This is the Writers Chat for November. I want to make sure I get the date right because I've been saying it wrong all day. November the 2nd. And I continue to be John. Hi, I'm the guy who's going to help you write better. And let's do a proper intro, though. Let's see what we can, actually say. Ladies and gentlemen, guys, gals, non-binary pals, friends, writers, makers, doers, dreamers, planners, thinkers, watchers, hopefuls, aspirants, shakers, movers, dippers, partiers, actual people who give a shit, anybody who enjoys good nacho cheese, any fan of butts, any fan of good snacks, any fan of burnt ends, anybody who really appreciates in those cooking videos how they just take big chunks of butter and put them in things, cookie lovers, cookie monster lovers, cookie puss lovers, and most importantly, the comrades. Hi, here we are. We're doing this. Now, one thing tonight, one difference. It's been a while since we've done a Q&A. The last couple of weeks I've been trying to figure out what else I want to talk about on a Wednesday, but I want to go back to Q&A because I like Q&A. They make me happy. They fill me with a sense of joy, and they're a nice contrast to existential dread. Tonight, though, I'm doing something a little different. We've got 13 questions and no gentle advice. I'm sorry, Allie. I know you like the gentle advice harp, so I'm throwing this in just for you, okay? Here you go. Just for you. a gentle advice harp. That's all you're fucking getting, though. That's it. We're going to go answer some questions now. I do want to point out, for the last time, at least until, I DM them on Twitter again, that we're brought together by Sprecher Brewery. Sprecher Brewery, your home for the most amazing root beer in the world. SprecherBrewery.com, your home for all different kinds of things, like orange cream soda, orange soda, apple soda. It's very good. A ginger ale that's practically a ginger beer, and a variety of other things in all different flavors. Go to SprecherBrewery.com right now. Grab yourself a case for 30-ish or so bucks. Get it shipped right to you. It's damn good ice cold, and I, of course, strongly recommend not only the root beer, but the fire-roasted grape soda. Oh, fire-roasted grape soda. You haven't lived till you've had a fire-roasted grape soda with a cheeseburger and fries. It'll change your life, like so many other things in the world. Sprecher Brewery, it fucking rules. And why they don't have that in the regular ad copy, I don't know. Sprecher Brewery, it fucking rules. Take that. Just use that. All right? How about, though, we get started on our day, shall we? Let's just jump over here to our first question. Question number 1. John, how do I write a character with multiple personas? Hang on, come here, right here. Very carefully, very sensitively, because you're treading into the waters of murky mental health grounds, and people can be very contentious, for good and for ill. They can really have some things to say, be well informed, but also just viciously incorrect things. So rather than have you worry about tap dancing through a minefield, let me just tell you this. From a narrative perspective, a multiple persona, a second personality, a third, a fourth, a however many, they're essentially a different character. They're just inhabiting the same physical space, air quotes, as your other character. So you treat them as though there are multiple people in the room. Treat them as though they're an external other body. They're just not, for the sake of probably what you're trying to do. If we're looking at an example, something like Moon Knight, as much positive and negative flack as to representation on a mental health level Moon Knight did or did not do well, Moon Knight, especially in the comic, is why are you telling me there's a thing to update later? Don't tell me this now. I'm so sorry. Just pops up in the middle of the screen. Hey, update your shit. I'm in the middle of answering a question. Do you mind? Anyway, sorry. I was saying Moon Knight, particularly in the comic, effectively handles the separation between characters and really just treat it like different beings, even though they're occupying the same brain space, for lack of a better term. And you'll get across what you need to get across. But I have to, at least, I would be remiss if I didn't, raise a few cautionary flags, because it's very easy to do this poorly. And it's not impossible to do it well. Let's be clear. It's not impossible to do it well. But it's very easy to really mess this up, and it's very common ground for a lot of people to try and tread because they think they're going to be the one to do it well. It's possible to do it well, just like so many other things, but be sensitive. Be careful. Don't do it in a way that shortcuts your plot. Don't do it in a way that absolves you of the responsibility of building effective characters. It's not a bad idea. It's not automatically wrong. It's not like a big giant red flag. But on the same hand, it's definitely one of the more like, let's see if we try not to overdo this one. Like be real cautious, be real careful with it. But you're going to treat them as though they're different people. Functionally, for the sake of conversation, for the sake of action, for the sake of thought. Don't overcomplicate this beyond that. You can fall down a rabbit hole, and it's just not worth it. Treat it like it's multiple beings, and you'll probably do fine. All right? Great start, great first question. On to the next one. All right, this comes with a bit of a setup. So the question here does not entirely cover the whole story. The question basically has to do with when you're trying to get a child to work on writing and storytelling and everything, how do you best effectively do that? That was the discussion that came up in the Discord earlier this week. By the way, if you want to check out the Discord, it's $2 to John Helps You Write Better on Patreon. Patreon.com/John Helps You Write Better. $2 gets you in the door, and then you can ask all the questions you want all the time. The question, though, is this. When you've got a child with an assignment, is retyping, meaning always from scratch, is retyping better than copy/pasting all the way through when you're trying to teach a kid how to write better? Let's break this down into its pieces. I know the question's a little vague, but there's a whole long explanation, and I want to. It's not necessarily worth it for the specifics, but I at least want to answer at least about retyping versus copy and paste. First of all, you have to understand why a teacher would have them do that. Why wouldn't they just copy paste? The rest of the world, all of us over here, we're going to copy and paste because that's what happens in the real world. Let's just dispense with that illusion now. The reason why you'd have a student retype over and over and over again is because you're trying to create the illusion of a homogenous playing field. All the other kids have to sit down and write. So we're going to make the other kid who maybe has accommodations or an IEP or something like that, we're going to make them do that too. We're trying to create this uniform field so that nobody feels too left out and nobody feels too harmed or nobody feels too aggrieved. But at the same time, you're not accurately helping. It is in the abstract, just to answer the question, in the abstract, in the perfect world where everything is all nice, neat, and pretty, it's a much better idea to retype from scratch in abstract without any kind of human condition, because you should treat your draft, whatever you're writing, this is true for everybody, not just students, you should treat your draft as a blank space that you can constantly iterate upon. However, if you were, that would be ideal if you were learning how to type, like if you were learning to put your fingers on the keys and not look at the keys, but look at the screen when you're typing. If you were teaching touch typing and trying to get your fingers on those home keys, retyping is an excellent strategy. There's no denying there is a value to retyping from a blank page. However, when you're learning how to write better, meaning revision, editing, stuff like that, retyping is a waste of time. Because it's not the retyping that teaches you, hey, I'm going to change this sentence. Hey, I'm going to change this comma. Retyping is just a mechanical act. It's just, I'm moving my fingers again. The whole point of this, if we're trying to teach somebody how to write better, how to be more effective with their language, how to use language to describe things more clearly or more evocatively, or just do more with language, it doesn't matter if they retype. Just because I make you hammer out the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog 5 times does not suddenly mean you understand something better about the nature of the word quick or the nature of brown. Like if we're trying to really get a picture into somebody else's head, which is what we're always trying to do when we're telling a story, copy paste is fine. It's preferable. If you were still learning the rudiments of language, like if you were still trying to identify the letters and you were still trying to identify, like when I press this key, this letter appears on screen, or if we were trying to teach the rudiments of mechanical typing, then yes, I'd say retype till the cows come home. But if you're just trying to get a kid to do stuff to produce work, copy paste is fine, and otherwise you're just being an asshole about it. There's my professional, I'm not a teacher answer, but I hope that answers your question somewhat. Basically, retyping is not automatically better for writing better. It has a different value. It has a different purpose. Just let them copy paste. It's not the end of the world. On we go. How early, question number 3, how early should I make my social media accounts if I'm writing my first book? The word I want to get hung up on, the word I'm stumbling over, is the word make. Because if we're just creating them, right, we're not going to use them. We're not going to drive traffic somewhere. We're just going to have them so that we don't have to make them later. If we're just going to make them and have them and they're going to sit empty and abandoned for a while and no one's going to know we have it, early's fine. Do it some afternoon after you write write part of a chapter. Just, real quick, sign up for something, get a Facebook account, get a Tumblr page going, get a something going, right? If you're just having it to hold it for later with no real intent to use, do it whenever. Totally fine. But don't interpret make my social media account for how soon into the writing process should I really start, moving and shaking on social media, because the earlier you are in your writing process, meaning the earlier you are in the draft, you are going to talk about different things. If we're still in the process of making the first draft, and I'm making a distinction between draft and book, because we need to make that distinction. If we're in the way early days, we're still figuring out like what the outline is, and maybe we're going to figure out what happens in chapter 20. The social media you could possibly generate is different than the social media where you are advertising or promoting the possibility of pre-sales. You are not going to collect pre-sales on a book that's still not even done the first draft. That would be a ridiculous waste of time and resources. What you want to do if you're in the middle of drafting is use your social media to grow an attentive future audience. Hey, you guys, I'm making a book. You want, here are my updates. Here's what, and you're trying to attract people on partially the process, but partially also the potential of what comes next. Eventually, I'm going to finish this book and you're going to want to be here. So get in here now so that you don't have to worry about it later. Once the book's complete, once the drafting is done and you're putting it out into the world, then you're going to transition away from, hey, I've been working on this thing and here's how it's going to. It's done. Get a copy of it. But if we're just talking about possessing the account for later, early's fine. Do it in the first draft. Do it some Saturday afternoon after you're done writing, because it honestly does not take that much time to sign up for a social media account. Even if you were to generate an email address from scratch, how long does that take? Maybe, let's be broadly generous. Let's say you're going to make 3 social media accounts, Facebook, Tumblr, and TikTok, right? And we need an email address. So that's 4 things we have to make. Maybe 20 minutes to sign up and click through all the things. Maybe 20 minutes. Is that like a lot? 20 minutes. You don't have to do it all at once. Do the email address, come back 15, 20 minutes later while the dishes are washing or whatever, do another one. Like, early is fine if you're just holding it. But if we're talking about use, remember that your use is going to change over the course of what you're writing. Good question, though. Great question. Are there, while I put water in my face, I grabbed tea, so we're going to do the tea first, I guess. While I'm putting tea in my face, are there any questions from anybody in chat? Oh, that's really good tea tonight. Oh, that's lovely. That is strong. Jeez. Okay. Questions? Anybody? Else we will move on. Before you ask, the tea is Russian, and it's dark as hell. It's great. It was a gift. I'm thrilled. Love it. I've also got like 2.5 liters of ice cold water sitting next to it. I plan on doing a lot of talking, and we're going to ramp up to some spicy questions in the very, very near future. Shall we move on? We ready to go? Let's go on to the next one. Question 4. Oh, do I really, really, really need Twitter to promote my book anymore? No, you don't. See, here's the thing. Twitter's going to collapse. It's being re-engineered to collapse. I don't know how long that collapse is going to take, but the way things are going to be financially subscription based, I guess might be the word, or the way they're going to nickel and dime everything, and the way the priorities have shifted. I'm being very generous here. The way everything has gone to hell in a handbasket. Some people are going to actually hang on. Let me finish this and I'll get the question in chat. Twitter's going to hell in a handbasket. There's no way around it. Now, a lot of people, they're not going to give a shit until one day they try to log in and the thing's gone, because they're they're clueless. They don't follow these things. They also don't care about these things because it doesn't really seem to affect them because they're just there to jump into the hashtag writing community and, like in general, just sort of be oblivious to the shit because it doesn't directly affect them. So why should they care? Because caring would mean they, have compassion or understanding for other people. And if I can't, how am I supposed to have compassion if I'm just here to play a stupid reindeer game and, tell you how great it is that my character drinks coffee? So they're not going to notice. But you don't need Twitter anymore. You don't have to go to Twitter. You want to jump on Mastodon? There's a ton of Mastodons. Go get federated. Do all the things you got to do. You can do this on Tumblr. You can do this on TikTok. You can do it on Instagram. You can do it in your Discord community. You can do it on Facebook. You can do it any goddamn where. Twitter was a big deal for a while. Now Twitter is on the decline. You do not need Twitter anymore. Now, here's this comment. And I want to get to it because it's a really good question. So we're going to slap it right up on the screen. Have you ever considered podcast guests or doing coaching or a series of coaching on the podcast? Yes. I would love guests. I finally figured out how to do guests with the new setup. Hell, you could even call in if we wanted to do a guest phoner. You don't even have to be here. That's totally fine. I would love to do a guest, but I'd like it to be a guest with something to say, not just like, if you're going to ask me a question, great. If you're going to come in and talk about something, excellent. I don't want it to just be like, all right, talk about your book for 20 minutes. I'm going to go, get some lunch and then I'll come back and do the outro. Like I'm not selling the ad. I'm not giving the ad space like that. But I would absolutely love to have a guest come in and have a conversation about some writing topic or about some idea. I'd love to do that. I'd be thrilled to do that. That'd be awesome. Have I thought about doing coaching, like podcasting a coaching session? No. Mainly because nobody's ever brought it up before. I'm not opposed to it. It would mean somebody has to be okay with hey, can I record while we're doing this? I mean, usually for somebody in a Zoom thing, I will record it for their benefit, but I've never asked, hey, can I, also throw this on the podcast feed? I would, if they said yes, and I think for the majority of people, they'd say yes. I mean, some of that stuff's very specific. I'm not sure you want to hear about how we're going to, unfuck somebody's third chapter or me talking for 45 minutes about why this character needs to not be in the story anymore. But I think in a broad sense, yeah, we could cover some kind of coaching stuff on the podcast. It would be longer. I mean, right now my podcast is somewhere between 6 and 15 minutes. The dog next door is going bananas. About 6, and it's designed to be this quick dose of stuff. But I'd love to cover a coaching session on the podcast and kind of explain hey, this is what it is. Sure, I just haven't had anybody offer. If you're out there listening to this or you're watching this and you want to be that person, johnhelpsyouwritebetter.as.me. Book something, and in the little box where it says what else do I need, what tell me about what's going on, just write me a note. Hey, throw this on the podcast. I'd be super excited to do that. That'd be fantastic. Just never came up. You enjoy the longer content. See, that's interesting because you are now in the minority of people, because a lot of people who listen are like, I'm loving the short stuff because it's this quick little thing I can pop on and go. And I got to say, putting out shorter content is certainly a lot easier on my end because I can pop it on. I can clip the Rode mic to me or the headphones or whatever and just move around the house because I tend to move when I talk. So the ability to really just be active helps me kind of scramble everything together. So longer content would be cool. Yeah, I'd be down for it. I just need somebody to say yes and do it. Sure, let's do it. Let's give it a try. I would love to do a guest. I have more than enough equipment, more than enough ability to do that. Just nobody's ever tried. I think it'd be great. Great question. Love this question. Also, fuck Twitter. You don't need it anymore. All right, on we go to the next one. Oh my God. We're just going to get a mouthful of tea now. Hang on. Someone offered to publish my book. Oh, I'm very happy for you. That's great. I just have to pay them $1,000 up front and then pay them a yearly digital storage fee to keep my book in their Amazon account. Should I do it? Can I just press this button until my finger falls off? Come here. Come here. Into the microphone. Here we go. No, don't do this. This is a bad idea. First of all, they're not publishing your book. You are paying them. I don't know why you're paying them a digital storage fee. Amazon's free. Like, you could just have an Amazon account. You don't. What are you paying them for? What's the $1,000 for? Like, okay, I could understand. I guess I could understand. Like, you put my book up and I'll split sales with you, I guess. But what's the $1,000 up front? Like, are you supposed to earn that back and then all the money is yours? That's not what a publisher does. I mean, it's like a loose misunderstanding of what a publisher does, but it's not what a publisher does. Because you don't get the money to publish, you got the money to hold the rights. This is dumb. Don't do that. Okay, first of all, if you're willing to go through that and you have $1,000, spend it on something else. A yearly digital storage fee? Like this, you understand that this person is looking for $1,000 plus extra yearly from you to do nothing. And there's no guarantee that you'll have access to their Amazon account. So you'll have no real sense of your metrics. You'll have no real sense of your marketing. You'll have no real sense of whether or not the money you're getting is truly the amount you're owed. So, no, don't do this. Like, are you scared? Like, does the idea of starting your Amazon thing scare you? Like, I'll hold your hand. I'll walk you right through how to do it. It's not very difficult. It's just filling out a couple forms and clicking some buttons. Like, it's not, they're not asking for a kidney yet. They don't want like a sacrifice to some deep eldritch god. You just got to fill out some forms. There's nothing very scary there. If you're of a persuasion where you think, oh, they're going to take my personal information, I'll remind you that it's Amazon. And they more than likely already have your personal information. So what are you doing? Like, what do you get out of this deal? You get to say you're published. Oh, well, if you did all the work yourself, you could also say that. Like, what's the $1,000 should be like the big giant, like alarm bell ringing kind of a thing. Like, not the smartest thing in the world to do. Like, don't just give, like, if you have $1,000 and you're looking to burn it, give it to me. It'll change my life. I'll pay my bills and have lights and groceries. Like, that's like, don't do this. This is, if you're also somebody who's like, oh, give me money and I'll, like, you're a thief. You're a thief if you're doing this. If you're hosting someone's book in your Amazon account, you're a piece of shit. You're just a shitty person doing a shitty thing, and you're exploiting somebody's labor under the guise of just being a good friend or some horse shit like that. Like, that's not what a publisher does. The reason why people traditionally publish, aside from the fact that they like the feel of a book in their hands or whatever other, like, oh my God, look at that, the bullshit hand is back. Whatever other nonsense they've lied to themselves about in terms of nostalgia, the reason why people traditionally publish is that publisher is eating or accepting the risk and the costs. They're paying for the shipping. They're paying for the distribution. This dude's not paying for the distribution because it's Amazon, so it's likely a digital product. So what the fuck is the money for? Don't do this. No, run away from this. I'm just going to keep pressing this button. Don't. Like, no, you should not do it. If you have that money, spend it on doing this yourself. $1,000, you could get that thing like full on edited well with a nice cover for $1,000 total. A yearly digital storage fee. How does this not scream scam to everyone? Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't like it. Not a fan. On we go to 6. Oh, Jiminy fucking Christmas. Is world building disease a thing? What is it actually? Is it bad? I have 2 its. That's my frustration in typing. How do I prevent it? What? Okay, this seems like the kind of jargon that shows up somewhere in some internet discourse and somebody takes it verbatim at face value. It's not a disease. You can't go to the World Health Organization or the CDC or your local health minister or like the Mayo Clinic for this. It's not a real thing. If you're referring to the idea that there's too much world building and not enough other story stuff, that is a thing. It's a sign of it not really being an effective story and not a story well told. It's a problem where you have created this landscape, but you've failed to do the other stuff. You failed to populate it. You failed to create tension. You failed to develop like an idea. You just have this space. And it's nice that you're just painting a landscape. It's nice that you've just created this flat, empty space. There's real value in that for stuff like other people to use your work. If you just want to like license or sell the landscape or sell the world building, it's a really popular move in like role-playing spaces or LARP spaces where you create basically the space for other people to iterate, but it also means you still have to require things like character development. You still have to give them more tools than that. It's never enough just to like create a world and then walk away. So is it a thing? It's often a problem writers have when they have an inability to express like conflict or express theme or create a single character to have somebody relate to. They can create a world. They can create this. Well, wouldn't it be cool if there was like and then they fill in the blank with like a kingdom or a sci-fi planet or a world underwater or whatever. They can think of a thing, a place, but they can't necessarily take those next steps where it's like, okay, in this place, there's also these other problems, or in this space, there are these people, or there's a goal to accomplish. Like they've only done the first of several steps in development, but they stop there, I guess, because they get hung up on the fact that they made a cool thing, which is nice, but you're nowhere near done. It's like sort of saying like, I'm running this marathon, but I stopped after a mile because I didn't think I could run the marathon. Is it bad? Yes. Like it's a real problem if you don't do the rest of the story stuff. You haven't written a story. How do you prevent it? Do the other parts. Like just don't forget that there's more to a story than the world the story occurs in. Like characters and plot and conflict and theme and action and dialogue and emotion and arcs and stuff. Like there's way more to, I'm trying to find a book to throw across the room. Like there's way more to any story than just the world that it is. And I understand that a lot of media prioritizes the world because we're looking often at visual media like, hey, look how cool this television show is. But that's only one part of it. Like the world is just the stage. There's so much more to do. So don't stop there. Don't just do the world. Do more with it. I gotta say, that's an odd question. Like, if you're bringing it up, why? What are you worried about? Like, are you sure if it's an issue of I don't know if I've made an effective world, or I don't know if I've created enough world stuff? That's a great question. That's a question you can answer based on how many words, how much material, how many plots, how many scenes, how many elements have you made in addition to. Like, if we're looking at a ratio or a mix, for every one world building thing, do you have like 55 character things? So there's this disproportionate balance. That's a valid question. If that's what you're asking, then how you offset that is by paring down on the overcomplicated thing and adding to it the stuff that it's missing. You rebalance the draft. It most often leads to rewrites. But if you're just asking if it's just a thing people do, I guess, yeah. I mean, they also like cross the street and chew bubblegum. So yeah, it's a thing, but it doesn't like do anything. I think that's what you're asking. If you're asking a more detailed world building question, come on back anytime and I'll be happy to answer. But is it a thing? No. It's a thing where only in the sense that more people need to write the rest of story stuff, but it's not like a thing where we have to like, panic about it. All right, on we go. Are there other questions? As I see more people came in. Hello, other people. It's nice to see you. Thanks for being here. I'm still thinking about that podcast guest coaching question. Because I'm somebody who like, why is that making noise? Stop it. Sorry. Hello, everybody. Hi, it's good to see you. Why did it do that? I don't know. Anyway, that's just crazy. I'm thinking about it because I'm somebody who likes to listen to long form content. And I clearly, obviously, if you've listened to any length of stream or anything, I can produce long form content. It's just never occurred to me to bring coaching into this space. I've always seen this space as sort of working in parallel to it. So it's definitely something now I'm going to think about. It's definitely something I'm going to like chew on. You have a question. It's so good to see you. Hello. When would you recommend someone choose traditional publishing instead of self-publishing? Let's slap that up on the screen so that everybody can see it. When would you recommend TradPub over self-pub? Okay, here's exactly when I would recommend traditional publishing over self-publishing. 1, if you're writing a children's book or a very, very early reader, or something that's going to definitely skew very, very young. I'm not talking middle grade. I'm talking younger than middle grade. Like, you very clearly got a book that deserves and warrants like more rigid physical publication, like a kid's picture book or something, or like a Dr. Seuss kind of like you sit there and read to your kid or read with your kid, see Dick run, run Dick run, that kind of thing. That's where I would most definitely say, because you've got a need for a physical product more than a digital product, then traditional publishing would probably be a first and better instinct. Where else would I offer traditional publishing? If you were doing something that was not too avant-garde, but formerly in a very quiet, nearly dead genre, then traditional publishing might help grow sales. Something like a Western, like a true Western, like a romantic Western, or something like nonfiction, more of the nearly academic nonfiction. For example, most of the nonfiction I read has very political or social elements to it. Stuff on prison abolition or universal basic income or racial discrimination or history or something like that. Because of the academic bend to the work, and because of the size of the audience and the way the material is received and marketed, I'd say that traditional publishing is the way to go. Overall, really, what this comes down to is, what criteria do I use to figure out how you should best publish your story? Here's that criteria laid out. If you are in need of a clear marketing channel outside of your control, and it doesn't matter to you the amount of control you have or the amount of marketing done, and you're indifferent to the stress behind meeting other people's sales goals. Like if you're a very externally motivated person who needs to know, like, somebody else sets this goal and I will rise or fall to it, or if you're somebody who likes to emulate other people in order to declare your own success. Like, I want to do it just like famous author X did. If that's really and legitimately a driving force outside of the edge cases like the children's picture book or the academic text I talked about before, then I would say, yeah, go traditional. I do think, however, that for a lot of people, the traditional route carries with it still, for whatever reason, that extra level of legitimacy for some reason it feels less bootleg, I guess, or it feels more sincere or valid because there's more people involved. There's more fingers in the pie. There's more cooks in the kitchen. And as much as I would want to divorce people from that, because more cooks in the kitchen means more people have a say in a thing that you've made. More people are pushing and prodding your art that may be in directions that aren't the way you want your art to be. But it does liberate some, not all, but some of the work and the expense away from publication, because you're not footing the bill for an editor. You're not footing the bill for a cover. It does, however, mean that you have to work hard to meet somebody else's demands in order to make your money back so you get paid. We've added hoops to this system. If saying all that doesn't bug you, if saying all that doesn't throw you off or piss you off or whatever, if you're like, oh, I'm okay with that, then go for traditional publishing. But if you're somebody who wants a pretty straightforward line from I made a thing, please pay me for my thing, and you want more of a firm say in how you market, and you want a firm say in getting your material to your intended audience, and you know who your audience is, there's nothing wrong with self-publishing. It takes more work. I don't think it makes you more valid the same way that people think traditional publishing is more valid than anything else. I don't think it's a question of validity or legitimacy. I think it's just a way to produce an object, whether I use somebody else's machinery or I mill it myself in the garage or whatever. I think for some projects, self-publishing's better. If you're doing something where you are intentionally leaning into the transgressive or the counterculture nature of a thing, or you're going for something that deliberately goes against the grain or swims upstream when everybody else is going downstream, then yeah, something like self-publishing lets you keep that edge. I also think if it's small and small batch, very artisanal work, where you're only putting out, I don't know, making numbers up, you're only going to put out 50 copies and when it's done, it's done. Self-publishing is absolutely the way to go. But for the most part, if you're looking for something, if in your example and in your case, you're looking for other people to absorb the cost and you're willing to make those concessions, do traditional publishing. I will always tell you, not just you specifically, but anybody, I think you should give self-publishing a really fair shake. But I can understand not wanting to for any number of reasons. But I do tell people sometimes, hey, traditional publishing, give it a try. I have a question too. I hope I answered your first question. I have a question too. When life is getting hard and you can't summon the energy for a standard long writing session, what's the best way to get words on the page while being kind to yourself and not feeling guilty for hitting word count? You're welcome. Not feeling guilty for hitting word count. Okay. The thing that bugs me in your question that I'm going to shine a spotlight on are the fact that you stuck the words standard and long next to each other. Because what that tells me is that you have an expectation that a writing session is only good when it fits certain parameters. And, that's going to be the obstacle, because let's say you said, I'm making numbers up. I don't know if this is for you, but if you say I have to write for an hour, just as a flat block of time, not I have an hour to write in, but I must write I must write X number of words a day, or I must write for Y amount of time. You are setting yourself up more to fit the parameters of that time and space, as opposed to using that time productively. Because if it's just, hey, I'm going to write today, and however long I write is however long I write, and however many words I write is however many words I write, even if you're under deadline, even if you've got somebody on your back saying you got to get this done by X date, there are always chances and opportunities to split your time. For instance, if you don't have the energy for a long session, and however we define long is however we define long, if you don't have the energy for it, there's nothing wrong, zero things wrong with the idea of I'm going to write for 10 minutes and then I'm going to sit down for a while. And then later I'll get up and I'll try for 10 more. Or I'm only going to write 20 minutes because I'm not feeling well, or I'm distracted, or there's a billion other things going on. There's no you're not committing a crime. You're not defrauding anyone. You're not harming anyone. You're not ruining the world or making it a worse place if you spend 41 and not 45 minutes writing. You must be kind to yourself, because more than your words, more than your books, you have to live with yourself. And if you're disinterested in beating yourself up, and that's not a thing you want to keep doing, don't set yourself up into situations where that's your go-to move. Like, the best way to get the words on the page is to do it in the smallest pieces possible. A few words here, a few words there. I'll tell you this. I have created blog posts, and you can go look at the blog, johnhelpsyouwritebetter.medium.com, and try to guess which posts I wrote this way. Here's the thing I've done. I'd write a paragraph, 2-3 sentences, and then I'd alt-tab away to some other thing, or I'd leave the room, and then I'd come back and I'd write another paragraph, and then I'd come back and write another paragraph, and then I'd, go to the bathroom and come back, and then I'd have lunch, and then I'd write a sentence at a time, and eventually I'd get it done. I mean, it arguably, I guess, technically took all day, but if you added up the exact number of minutes, it's probably no different than if I just sat all at once and sat down and wrote it. But it didn't make me bad. Nobody's coming to hit my knuckles with a ruler or anything. It's just, that's how I had to do it that day. There was shit going on. Also, hitting word count. Don't do that. Don't worry about word count. Like, I understand, like, right now we're in the throes of NaNoWriMo. And, I'm of a conflicted opinion about NaNoWriMo. But if you don't hit word count, you don't hit word count. Even under contract, people don't specify word count per day. That's a put upon thing we manufacture for ourselves. Nano is infamous for it. But we have this idea that we've got to have so many words per day to be good. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Because let's just say hypothetically you have to have 3,000, I'm making numbers up, 3,000 words a day. If you end up cutting them at the end of the week because you cut that whole chapter when it comes time to revise, what did you just waste your time writing the 3,000 words in the first place? No, because you sat down and you thought those 3,000 words were good. That's why you wrote them. Giving yourself obstacles, ceilings, is not evidence of growth. Like, you're not doing that to help. Nothing is gained by you making it harder on yourself to accomplish your goal. It doesn't make your goal more valuable. This isn't the same as like, hey, I'm working out, so let's put 5 more pounds of weight on, or let's try to do another like 2 extra pull-ups or something, or let's see if I can jump rope for an extra 5 seconds, or let's see if I can swim another lap. Like, we're not pushing ourselves in a productive way when we enforce rigidity about how and what we write. There's nothing, there's very little good in there. There's some good, I mean, a little bit of good in the sense that like you're doing something. You're not just sitting there staring out into space, and you're not like harming yourself in some way, shape, or form. But if you're not being nice to yourself doing whatever you're doing, you've gone back to not harming. You've gone back to not being good. You've gone back to harming yourself. Don't make it harder. Like, it doesn't taste sweeter. You don't make the victory greater. The cookies aren't any bigger. The money's not any better with you making it more difficult. So if you can't summon the energy, well, then I guess you're not summoning the energy. You didn't fail. You didn't disappoint anybody else, because unless you tell somebody, they're not going to know. For example, how many words did I write today? You have no idea. I'm not going to tell you. It doesn't really matter. I can tell you it was more than 100, but whether it was 100 or 101 or 5,000, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if I wrote them all at once. Doesn't matter if I wrote them, by like 5-minute chunks. Doesn't matter. Did I write? Yes, no. That's all you got to worry about. You know me, I'm built to make things harder. Yes, you're It sounds to me like you're looking for a reason to punish yourself for not meeting an inflexible goal or an inflexible set of criteria. My guess would be it's an inflexible set of criteria because you think that's the criteria that good people meet, and you're unwilling to declare yourself good without the criteria. So as a third party who is external from you, let me just tell you that you're already good. I've then saved you and spared you the trouble of trying to convince yourself, because if you're not going to listen to yourself because your brain's telling you some horse shit, listen to another person. You're doing fine. Did you write today? Yes, no. If yes, great. If no, okay, try again tomorrow. You didn't fail. You didn't let anybody down. It's not a problem. It's not a great loss. You didn't fuck it all up. You just did or didn't write today, and it's fine. There will be other days. There will be other times. It's okay. Don't make it harder. Just do your best. It's okay. Your best is plenty good enough. That's why they call it the best. All right? Please don't beat yourself up. Nobody wants that. Are there any other questions? Else we will march on. I believe there's some spicy ones coming. And at some point there's a question where I'm just going to lose my damn shit. I think that's 3 or 4 questions from now. Why? Stop connecting. So, side note, the new iPhone update allows your phone to function as a camera. And this dumb phone just randomly is like, oh, are you streaming? Here, let me just be an extra camera. So I'm really terrified that at some point, just this shut, because I've got the thing on the desk, it's just going to shoot a picture of my ceiling. It's I'm tempted to turn it off, but at the same time, I'm also using it to monitor stats and stuff and make sure the connection's holding. Fucking technology, man. All right. Other questions, issues, etc.? Else we will march on. I'm leaving all of this in the podcast, by the way. Sounds like a freak. Look, if I could get I still have a window open. Not in here, yeah, but I have a window open in the other room, and there are birds and wind. Well, there were birds. There are wind chimes over there, so the cats are over there chilling. They chill there most of the afternoon. They'll come in here at some point, probably food hunting shortly, or attention seeking. Stop! See, it's doing it again. But I should probably just rig a cat cam. I can't get them to hold like a GoPro. They have no. They won't. I can't harness my cats. I've tried, but if I can just get them to sit, I'm pretty sure I could. You could just stare at one of them licking a butthole or something. It's not very glamorous, but we'll give it a try. It'll be a thing that'll happen at some point. Let's go answer more questions. If I start writing in a different genre, at what point do I need a different pen name? Oh, okay. If you're just drafting, no one cares what your pen name is because you're just drafting. Like we just talked about before, nobody's going to know what you're writing if you don't say anything. So if you're still in the drafting stage, who cares about pen name? Because it's just you and you're drafting. When you go to publish, if it's still an if, it's not a given. If you want to put something out under a different pen name, like you've got one pen name for this genre and a separate pen name for that genre, then when you go to publish, slap the pen name on the cover, on the manuscript, and call it a day. But while you're drafting, while you're outlining, while you're whatevering, you don't terribly need a pen name unless you're using the pen name as some kind of like mental checkpoint to unlock and say okay, I gotta think like this other person. I'm gonna be this other person. I'm gonna write in a totally different way. Like if it's part of this sort of rigid creative identity thing you've got going on, then yeah. But by and large, the pen name is just an identifier or a label you're going to slap on the manuscript. So don't overthink it. Just put it on there when you're done. Because I got to tell you, I talk to writers all the time who use pen names or don't use pen names. Then their name, whether pen name or not, really only matters when we're done. Like we don't really talk pen names when we're in the middle of figuring out how to do the second draft. It just doesn't come up. It's not relevant. So pen name at the end, pen name pre-publishing, not so much in the drafting outlining stage, unless you're really like doing something significant with it, which I don't know. I can't think of a case where somebody really would, but only at the end do you need a new one. Good question. On we go to the next one. Where can I sell my books and meet new readers in person? Okay. Come here. Right here. Into the camera. Right here. Hi. There's this thing. I don't know if you've heard about it. There's this thing called Life. And people exist in it. You can go there and you can sell some books. You can get a little stand at a farmer's market or an in-person book conference. They have those things. They're back. I know there's a plague, but the world's pretending like there's not a plague. The world's pretending like there's not 35 million Americans or so affected with a long-term disease that will slowly debilitate them if it hasn't already. The world's pretending that millions of people globally haven't died. That doesn't matter because a few people were inconvenienced about, like, I don't know, putting a handkerchief in front of their face or putting a mask on because somehow it'll murder children or it'll make white dudes not in charge anymore. So people are pretending like that's just not a thing. So life is where you can sell your books, like bake sales, car washes, church events, Cub Scout rallies. You know, all those MLMs where people like sell vibrators and makeup and glittery shit, like protein shakes or exercise, like all those, like, hey hun, you know, love emoji. Here's a thing in Facebook Messenger. You know what I'm talking about? You know, those things. You could do that for your book. Hopefully it won't be weird like that, but you could just run a pop-up where you meet people and offer to sell your book. You could totally do that. I bet it would work because, you know, you pour somebody a glass of wine, you give them your pitch, you talk about your book, you offer them a discount, and they buy the book. Like, you could just hand-to-hand sell a book. That's how things used to be in the old days before the plague. Like, community days, church raffles, library sales, town car wash events, holiday things, farmers markets. Ask a Boy Scout. Like, any situation, hell, go door to door, I guess. Like, you could, sure, why not? You'd probably get some good press out of it. Like, you just, where are people? Go there. You know how they sell, like you know how the Cub Scouts or somebody sell popcorn? They stand in front of the Walmart or whatever, or they like stand in front of the grocery store. I can't think of, like, insert your grocery store name here, Tesco. Like they said, like, did you just stand there? You could do that. Why not? You don't have to wait for a convention. You don't have to wait for an artist's alley at a big thing. Any opportunity you have to be 4 to 7 feet away from another human being, masked and safe, you could sell a book. It's not, I mean, I'm looking around like there's some other part of the question I'm missing, but you could sell a book in person, just over there, out the door in the real world. Like, that's where the people are. Your local bookstore. If you rock up to your local bookstore and like, hi, I'm an author. I'd like to do a signing. What do I need to do? They'll do it. They'll help you. I don't know the steps. Everybody's going to have different steps. Some people are going to want you to have so many books on hand. Some people are going to want you to sign a thing or arrange a thing or this, that, or the other. But you just have to ask. You just have to try. A lot of the things people wonder how to do come from the fact that nobody's really done them. So it's very possible that in your town, wherever your town is, nobody has ever thought to like buy a little table at a stand in a farmer's market and just sell your book, or get a I don't know, at the next library social where you go and like talk about raising funds, you put your book out and put out a hat. I don't know. Look for opportunities where you as a human can communicate to another human without a screen and then engage them about the topic of your book. Engage them with your pitch. Yeah, it's scary. They're going to say no. Loads of people are going to say no. No happens. You'll probably feel like you're going to hear more no's in person. I promise you won't. But it'll seem like you'll hear more no's in person than you will online or via email. You won't. It's about the same number. Don't freak out. But just go look for people. You don't have to this isn't the old Hare Krishnas from the airport where as people are racing to a terminal, you're handing them your book and a flower and you're shaking a tambourine at them. No, I'm not asking you to busk at the train station or something. But look for an opportunity where you can create a commercial transaction. Look for an opportunity where you can promote yourself. Be brave. Ask questions. The worst that happens, you go to the bookstore, you go to your town event, and they're like, "No, we don't have any space," or "It's too expensive," or they quote you a price or whatever, and you just say no. That's fine. But over there, outside your front door, off your couch and way over there, there's loads of places you can meet real humans and sell real books. However, I'm going to tell you, if you're going to sell the book that way, you better have the book on hand. It really super helps. Nobody likes the idea that, well, just sign this vague form and eventually magically a book will appear. If you're going to sell hand to hand, essentially, have the book on hand. It really makes a difference because otherwise it's going to feel to them like they're throwing money at somebody for something with no real expectation of payoff. So if you're going to do that, have the book on hand. Great question. Off we go. Next. Can you change your pen name? Yes. That's it. That's all I have to say. You can change your pen name. You can change your pen name whenever you want. You can change your pen name in between books. I could give a shit. No one cares. It's just a pen name. It's a label. It's like saying Santa Claus. It's just mouth sounds. You could change your pen name. You could, sure. I don't know why you'd want to change it so frequently, but you could change your pen name. Go ahead. Make yourself happy. Next question. Are there, that's all I had to say. Yes. Next question. Are there any other questions, you guys, about anything? About anything? I didn't mean to be flippant about the pen name question, but yes, you just can. You just do it whenever. It's fine. Just do it. I mean, if you're going to change it all the way over everywhere, change it everywhere. Don't just have it changed in one spot and not the other. Make sure you make a list. Be organized about it. But yeah, you can do that. Any other questions about anything? Because I know for a fact the 10th question, Linus is over there, but I'm still going to, hang on 2 seconds. All right, I'm back. What did he do to this thing? Other questions, issues, etc.? Because we're going to bring back an old friend, an old classic. Ready? Question 10. Oh boy. Podcast people, you're missing out. Because here in my hand, I have the rant bell. Oh yeah, we're going. One more. Question number 10. How do I know what details matter? Does it matter if the car is old or that the main character has abs? Come here. Right here. With me. You and me. This is both a good question and a not good question. It's the right question, but also the wrong question. I want to explain this to you, and that's why I brought out the rant bell, because I'm about to get real loud about this, and I want you to understand why. Because this is the wrong, we'll start this way. This is the wrong question because it's focused on the wrong thing, because it assumes that you've forgotten a very critical thing. You're the author.
Whatever details you give the reader's going to assume they matter because you're giving them those details. So if you're telling me that the car is old, the reader, I, am going to sit there and go, it must be important that they're telling me the car is old. Or, it must be important that the character has abs. They want me to have that thought in my head. Now, if me saying that makes you think that, oh shit, I have to have 10 bajillion things and all the details. Well, welcome to the not great part of this, because that's the flat out wrong question. I'm turning my phone off as I do this because it's keeping me from totally blowing out the speakers and yelling. Listen very carefully to what I'm about to say. All the details matter and none of the details matter. And if you're fixated and focused on the number of details or the kinds of details, like you're ticking off some kind of box or you've got some kind of recipe to fill, you are fundamentally misunderstanding how it is we describe things. When you describe whatever the hell it is you describe, I don't care if we're talking about an old-ass car, your main character, the villain, the weather, the fucking trees next door, I don't care. The reader is just trying to create context with detail. So why are you telling them that thing? Is it just to paint a picture and you're going to move the camera because every sentence is a camera? So you're just moving we're going to say, hey, there are trees, and we move on. And that's all you need. And you don't need to break down and go, it's a larch. Monty Python. Or, it's an elm, or it's 4 elms. If it's really critical that you nail down the exact number of trees with the exact number of branches, for some reason, I don't know what it is, then yeah, the reader's going to try and juggle all these facts. The details matter because you're giving them, because you're telling them. If you are giving people excess detail, if you're listening to this going, well, he's only talking about the critical details, I have to only give him the bare bones. No, fuck no, double fuck no, super fuck no. That's not how this works at all. I'm not saying to starve the reader out. I'm saying that when you give detail about whatever thing it is, be it a big thing or a little thing or a huge thing or a tiny thing, the reader is going to sit there and go, okay, these are the things I know about this object. These are the things I know about this character. The cumulative total of all these details, whatever they are, rust, abs, stubble, backstory, socks, number of toes, whatever, give me a total overall picture of a thing. The amount of time and space you spend on the page tells me, oh, this is a big deal because we keep adding to it. We keep talking about this character. This must be an important character because I'm learning about their stubble and their abs and their ropey veins and their elbows and their backstory and their hair and their this and their that. I'm getting all these details, so a number of details mean probably this thing's more important. But if I'm just saying, hey, there's a tree in the neighbor's yard, and then we move on to something else, that tree's probably less important. It's not a matter of the details matter and you have to divine them. You're God. You get it? You're in charge. You are the person playing the computer game. You are the maker of all the Sims. You get to decide what I need to know. I'm not going to know it unless you tell me. If you tell me they're an accountant, then I will assume some rough other details, but the specifics of they're an accountant who never wears green will be unknown to me until you bring it up. So if you're bringing it up, I, the reader, am going to assume it matters. And if you're hearing that and thinking, well, I have to be more prudent with my details, you're misunderstanding the question, because there isn't a magic number of details per thing you're supposed to hit. Who gives a shit? You can have as many details as you want about a billion trillion things. Have you ever read Tolkien? He's packed with details about shit that doesn't matter. Tell me again about the lights of Valinor. Please, I pray to you. Please tell me again about the different kinds of berries on a different kind of bush. Please, would love that. Does it matter? It mattered to him. It mattered to some readers. Have you seen people on the internet? They're real specific about that shit. But by and large, could I get away without knowing the exact, the name of the dude's horse? Yeah, my life's okay not remembering the guy's horse. It was Barrack, by the way. I'm okay not remembering that fact. I'm okay with it not taking up residence in my brain. So does it matter? My question to you is, do you want it to matter? If you're trying to get it to matter because you have a thing and a point to say about it, then I guess it matters. Good for you. If you're just saying things to say things because you're just trying to stretch and fill up space, well, not to put too fine a point on it, but why? Why do that? What are you trying to say? What's your point? Not like, well, I need 11 details. Who said? But what's the point you're trying to make? So you're telling me this car is old in our example. Okay. Is it just because you want me to picture an old car and then move along? Or are you trying to say more about the car or say more about the experience in the car or say something about how somebody feels about the car? Like, you're making it old. Cool. Fine. Whatever. Why? Get to the why. Not the how, not the does, the why. Maybe there isn't an answer to the why. Maybe you're just telling me 5 things about the car because it's 5 fucking things about the car. That's fine too. But don't get hung up on this idea that like there's some like detail hierarchy. I mean, we can argue that there is or isn't a detail hierarchy. There is something called priority of detail, but that has to do with the order in which you tell things, not what the things are. Like, it's more important that you know how to frame a face or develop or describe a body as opposed to describe a role. Like, if I tell you they're a biped, that is more important than if I tell you they like cheese. Both of those things speak to the human condition in some way, but one is clearly more visually oriented or specific to the story than the cheese is. So that's a different discussion for a different day. That's probably a whole ass lesson unto itself. But this idea of like the debate, the fuss, the hay that gets made over the amount of detail and how much matters, it all fucking matters. If it's going on the page, it must matter in some way, shape, or form. And if your response to hearing that is, I'm going to pull way back and give no details, then you're misunderstanding what it means to relay a story to somebody. You're misunderstanding the idea that every sentence is a camera, and when you fail to give details, the screen goes blank. And when the screen goes blank, I can't see the movie. Because you turn the screen off. I want a movie in my head. I want a cinematic experience that feels realized and deep and detailed. And I don't mean detailed like, here's every fucking fact about every blade of grass in this field. I mean detailed like it feels like I'm standing there. Details that feel like I'm part of this thing. Did I just make your job harder? Yes. It's supposed to be hard. We're making art. If it were simple, I'd be doing a different job. You'd be done already. This isn't simple. I want you to think about this. I want you to choose the details. I want you to say, hey, I'm telling you this about the car because I'm got a point to make about the car, or it's an important character element, or it's just an old ass car and I want to complain about the old car. Like, there's a value to it. You're not just putting it there to put it there. Does it matter if the car is old? Maybe. Does it matter if the main character has abs? Maybe. Maybe I'll find out because it's in the story. Maybe I'll finish the book and go, it wasn't all that critical, but I'm glad I knew it at the time. And all of that is 1,000% valid. Great question. Thanks for letting me ring the bell. On we go to the next one. Oh, what's one thing you wish every author would do that makes a huge positive difference? Oh, God. So many things. So many things. Okay. One thing? One thing I wish every author would do. Get off social media or spend 50% less time on social media. I wish more people focused on their craft, like the actual production. I know I had an earlier question about hitting your daily worth. That's not what I mean. I mean, like, you just didn't spend time losing yourself to the hashtag writing community. And you just worked on your own writing. And you read the books you wanted to read, and you consumed the shows you wanted to consume, and you listened to the podcasts you wanted to listen to, and you didn't get involved with the discourse, and you didn't, sit around in the inane jerk off sessions of the writing community, and you didn't fuck around with all the stupid inane shit. and you focused on making your craft the best it could be by educating yourself, either by taking classes or just reading and thinking and trying new things. And you put some of that energy and some of that effort into, I want to get better at this, so I'm surrounding myself with possible tools and possible influences, as opposed to, I want to get better at this, so let me find 10 other people who say they want to write but seem to be tweeting an awful lot. Like, I wish people would focus more on their own stuff and focus more on their own goals, because when they do and they discover that they're actually capable of doing all the things they thought they couldn't, like, have you ever seen the sheer joy in somebody's face or heard it in their voice when you answer a question they have and they're like, thanks? Or when they tell you something like, I didn't think I could write this well, and then you point out that they wrote really effectively. Have you ever like heard that sense of relief? Like that'll change somebody. That'll make a difference. That will inspire and that will encourage. If you've ever given good feedback to somebody or you've ever received good feedback, you know what I'm talking about. But we don't spend enough time there. We don't spend enough time celebrating our good stuff. We don't spend enough time, enjoying the fact that, hey, maybe it's okay that we're good at this. And maybe my good is different than that person's good. And it's all still fine. Maybe if we didn't spend so much time worried about our metrics for followers and our downloads and our stats for this and our stats for that, we'd make better art. We'd make purer art. We'd make more passionate art. We wouldn't be trying to worry about what the market has for us. We'd just be creating. We wouldn't be worried about the hierarchy or the rat race or anything like that. So one thing I wish every author would do, cut their social media consumption by 50%. I recently more or less changed the way I tweet. I used to tweet, if you go way back, I used to tweet constant writing advice for free. I used to give away the store. I used to talk all the time about writing, and people were really affected by it, and it was really great. But over time, the return on investment wasn't there. I'm putting all this stuff out and ain't shit happening. And it was very discouraging and very frustrating. And I'd watch more people tweet different things but do better than me, and I felt really bad about it. And then Twitter goes to hell in a handbasket, and I realize that the majority of the time I spend on social media, I'm just bummed out. Like I'm happy because I get to talk to my friends, maybe about wrestling, maybe somebody shows me their butt or something, but like on the whole, it's mostly a bummer. So I stopped. There are days I don't really tweet. I'm on other social media platforms because I'm talking to my friends, or I'm in a group that we're talking about sobriety, or we're complaining about gaming or something, or we're watching a pay-per-view or some wrestling shit. But like my general consumption, I'm no longer spending all my time like doom scrolling and feeling frustrated. Oh my God, look at that grifter who just made, $7,000 on her new course, and I can barely get one PDF out without like having 2 panic attacks. If you cut your social media by 50%, the counter argument is, well, what about my sales? If you're putting all your eggs in the social media basket to generate sales, you're going to be disappointed. I'm not saying social media doesn't generate sales, but there's so much more to it than that. Do not count everything coming in from the fact that you post on Facebook. It's not enough. There's so many more things you can do, so many more outwardly successful things. A newsletter, an email, a website, a stream, a recording, a podcast, an interview. Like, I understand that these things take work and you have to set them up and you got to be a little bit brave to try them. And it's very easy to hang back and just, tweet or whatever, or write a little post on a Discord. It's very simple to do that, but it's also holding you back. It's also not challenging you enough. When you free up that space and you stop giving a shit about what stupid, like, does your character drink coffee? When you're no longer sweating that, you can put that time and effort on your own thing. You can watch a TV show that makes you say, holy shit, this is amazing. There's not a Jedi in sight, and this show is fantastic. Holy shit, I didn't think that was possible. Oh my God, look at that superhero story. It's fun, and the internet seems to hate it. I'm going to watch it twice. You get to choose where you put your attention. You get to choose where you put your energy. Why did you choose those things? And you can change them, right? I used to be on Twitter all the damn time. I used to say all the time, I tweeted like a 14-year-old girl. I hate to tell you this, 14-year-old girl's no longer on Twitter. I have very little interest in TikTok. TikTok scares me. It's very visual. It's very camera oriented, and that freaks me out. It makes me panic. So I don't. I move on, and that's fine. Things change, but check your consumption. It'll make a difference. I'm going to go to the next one. Oh, the complimentary question. What is one detrimental thing I see authors doing and I wish they would stop doing it? It'd be really easy to double down and say social media, but I'm going to give you a totally different answer. Here's a thing. Confusing utility in a community for growth as a writer. So there are oodles and oodles and oodles of Facebook groups and Discord communities and writing groups and all this stuff where they put a spotlight on what somebody's doing. You know, they can talk about their book, they can answer some bullshit about it, whatever. And it's nice. It takes up some time. It gives the appearance of being a successful person because people are asking you questions about like, what were your influences? When in reality, it doesn't do anybody any good. It doesn't. Because if the book's not done, who cares? Who cares how I was influenced to do this thing that I'm not doing anything with? That the file just sits there alone and cold in a file. Like, I'm just wasting time. Utility in a community is great. Community can be there for support. Community can be there to answer questions. Community can be there for encouragement. Community can be there to help solve a problem when you can't seem to find another solution. Community can be there as a safety net to catch you when you feel like you've lost it. Community is awesome. Everybody needs a community. We're all part of one collectively. It needs to be reinforced. Absolutely. But here's the downside of a community. It can be a time sink. Whether we're talking about the people who are terminally, permanently online, whether we are talking about people who are so deeply invested in all the wrong points and all the wrong spaces that them being online seems like their life and they don't ever divorce themselves from it. They can't really walk away from it. That's where a community can be a trap. Like, you might say, oh, well, I'm part of all these writing sprints. I'm part of all this other stuff. Okay. Are they really helping you finish? Is that critique group you're in that keeps telling you that everything is fine? Are they really pushing back on you and saying, hey, I think you could do this chapter better? Hey, I think it's time you stop writing because you're at 500,000 words and maybe you want to think about going to a new draft, or hey, maybe it's time to pare this stuff down. Community is functionally useful. It's not a surrogate for anything. It's a tool in the toolbox. It can be a refuge, sure, but by and large, it needs to serve a function for you. You don't need to sit there and answer unimportant questions when you should be finishing your work. You don't need to sit there and describe the world building and show it off if you're never going to finish. Or if it's been 4 months since you really pushed yourself, talking about your book is just masturbatory. And I understand, I mean, hey, there's no shame in feeling good. There's no shame in doing a thing that makes you feel nice. But at the same time, if that's all you're getting out of this, if that's the entire reason you're in this group or you're part of this circle or you're engaging in this activity, there are other faster, easier ways. Community should be there to assist you in growing. And that means for a lot of people that sometimes you grow past it. Sometimes you become you got to move forward. I was trying to come up with a way of saying like you outgrow the bowl you swim in and you got to move to a bigger source of water. and then you're starting off as a small fish again. And I know a lot of people don't because they're afraid of being a small fish over and over and over again. But you grow. You grew the last time, you'll grow again. You got to keep pushing and growing. So the detrimental thing, I think, is losing themselves in a community or in opportunities that don't push them forward enough. It's one thing if, like we were talking about, like, hey, 5 friends get together every Saturday for 20 years and they play a game. And that's fine, and that's great if that's what you want to do, because that's like the closed loop. But even in the course of that role-playing game, people presumably are leveling up, or they're telling stories, or they're changing or evolving. It's not just more of the same over and over and over again. Even in a video game, we kill some mobs and they respawn, or we move to another level. Like, the most detrimental thing I've ever seen is writers who hamstring themselves either out of intent, like, I'm just going to stay here and do this and stay here, and I'm not going to push and grow, because either they think that it's tapped, like, I think I've reached where I want to be, or I think I've hit my own glass ceiling, or they're just scared, and so they stay there. They hold themselves back. I can't stand it. I really wish they'd stop. I know so many writers who could really be making huge strides, legitimately. And I mean, the progress they think they've made is possibly not the progress they've actually made. But I know that if a lot of writers just changed a few habits, they'd be, and I'm not just talking like, hey, stop using so many commas. I mean, like, stop spending so much time and energy going in this direction when you should be going in that direction. That kind of thing. It would transform them. Their writing would improve. They'd finish their sale. They'd have sales. They'd be published. They'd move forward in big leaps and bounds. And I get that it's scary. I get that it's hard. But all art carries that fear, because if we're just making it for ourselves, if we're just doing it to see if we can do it, that's fine. But then we don't need this community. We can just engage with it at a tepid sort of like, I made a thing, bye, and go on about our day. But if we're doing this with the purpose of reaching out to others and connecting with them, we have to be aware that through connection comes evolution. We grow as people. We change. We adapt. We adopt. We move on. And too many writers don't. I don't know why. Probably out of fear. But I just wish people would stop swimming in circles in communities and really push forward. Challenge themselves. Have some uncomfortable conversations. Be uncomfortable. Not everybody needs to be your constant bosom buddy all the time. Sometimes your best friend's got to be the one who's going to tell you, hey, are you going to do this thing or not? And maybe you will and maybe you won't. I wish more communities had that. I wish more places and spaces were willing to be more than foam, rubber, and bubble wrap. Because I think you've got to have more than, you've got to have some sharp corners. You've got to have some rough spots. You can't always be hyper nice. Sometimes you have to be real, and real means messy, and real means difficult. And sometimes, you know, it's okay to be encouraging. It's okay to be super positive, but never at the expense of the goal. Because if you just want me to like blow smoke up your ass, that's fine. But in the long run, I'm going to get real frustrated doing it because you're capable of better than that. I'm capable of better than that. And if the roles were reversed, wouldn't you want me doing better than treading water? You're my friend. That's what I wish writers would stop doing, holding themselves back, thinking that, well, I'm here and I'm too scared to go anywhere else, and this is, you know, giving me some brain chemicals, so I'm just going to stay here. I wish more people would push themselves. I think about that a lot. I really do. Especially in November when everybody's like, the camaraderie of NaNoWriMo. Okay, which one of those people are coming over to help you proofread? Who's going to watch your kids so you can, you know, spend an extra hour? Who's taking your dog out? Which one of these people in this group's going to like listen to you vent? Oh, nobody? Cool. Good community. Good looking out. Bugs me a lot. Also, this is the time of year where I am frequently told the most that I'm not nice, because I'll say a thing like, hey, you shouldn't stay in a place that's holding you back. Or I'm not encouraging enough. I'm plenty encouraging. I'm just not going to soft coddle you. I'll be encouraging. I'll tell you can do amazing things. You could change the world. You can move mountains. You can create art that changes the course of somebody's life. You can inspire somebody the way you were inspired by somebody else. You can put your art into the world and it will outlive you. You can have a legacy. You can publish a book. You could maybe even make some money from that sale. You can do all these things. You're capable of this. And if you're not capable to the full degree yet, you can learn how. It's going to take time. And in the course of that time and transformation, you're going to skin your knees. You're going to run into some frustration. You're going to have some hard spots. You're going to have some struggle. You got to know that's coming. And the rejection is going to come too. And you're going to have to learn how to handle people saying no, people saying they don't like it, people telling you that you're not special, people telling you that it's hard, and you've got to learn how to deal with the bumps and bruises as well as the parts where you really excel. And the whole big picture is all within your control. And if I'm telling you that and you're still swearing to me up and down that that's not nice, then you have a very strange definition of what nice is. Because this is art. And art is not always sunshiny and rainbows. Because sometimes artists struggle. And sometimes writers have a tough time. And you got to be able to balance and deal with all those things. Not just focus on the hyper positive and pretend like the bad shit doesn't exist. You got to learn how to balance all of that. So I can be nice. And I can balance the bad shit too. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you something that is just uncomfortable and awkward. I'm totally willing to tell you that when you write bad shit, somebody's going to notice. It sucks to hear. But you're also going to get 1-star reviews. You're also going to avoid sales. You're going to write some bad sales copy. You're going to write this. Like, it just happens. You got to face the reality. No matter how idealized the parasocial relationships might be, you have to face the reality. I say this all the time, and I'm told I'm not nice. I don't know what to tell you. I'm just trying to tell you how things are. Can I be wrong? Sure, absolutely. There are loads of people who are way more sunshiny and positive than me, and they're doing better. Some of them are legitimately doing better. Some of them are just lying to you and tell you that they're doing better. But I'm at least going to help you. I want to do that for me. If this helps, great. If not, great. And the world still keeps turning. But don't stay in a spot. Don't stay in a space just because you're afraid. Say you're afraid. Ask for help. See if they help you out. See if you can find answers to your questions. See if you can figure out where the next goal is, where the next destination is, and then figure out how to get there if you want to get there. Not enough people do that. Not enough people do that. All right, let's wrap this thing up with the 13th question. Yeah, we did 13 today. Holy shit. 13th question. Are there any valuable writing exercises you'd recommend? Do you know how often I get asked this? I get asked about writing exercises a lot. I'm frequently surprised because every day you write is a writing exercise. Oh, you're drafting chapter 5. Oh, you're on your second draft. Oh, you're starting the third draft. Oh, you're writing a query letter and hoping it works out. Oh, you're working on your synopsis. Oh, you're putting sales copy out. You're doing whatever. You're writing a pitch, whatever. All those things are writing exercises. The idea that we segregate certain activities and call them exercise as though they don't count interests me because there's something to be said for the live ammunition, live fire exercise of putting something out and seeing it work in the field. I think every day you write, you are undergoing a writing exercise. I think every day you sit there and you work your brain and you burn the chemicals and you burn the calories to like figure out how does the villain work? What's this love story look like? What's this scene? What's this moment? Like, I think that's a writing exercise. To fracture it and then create something independent, that's fine. A lot of people feel the need to do that. Like, you get a lot of people who need like a warm-up activity. There's nothing wrong with that. That's great. If that's what you need and it works for you, great. But if you've never tried it and you're not sure it's going to work, there's no guarantee that it will all of a sudden be the thing, like coming down from the heavens to liberate you in your creativity. But people still ask for them. Fine. Okay. I've got tons. Here's the best one I've ever heard. Here's the best one I usually give to about like half my first time clients. In the course of a day, you go on about your life, doing whatever it is you're doing. There are probably, hopefully, other people somewhere, whether it's just online or whether it's in person or whether it's at a job or whether it's somewhere or you're at a stoplight in your car or you're just walking or whatever. You're encountering other people and you're hearing other people, whomever they might be. Listen to them, observe them. Not like in a weird, creepy way. You know what I mean? I'm not saying like go hide in their bushes or go through their trash. I mean like look across the street at the lady walking her dog. Just look at her for a second. Again, not in a creepy way. Or that conversation you had or the conversation you overheard at the grocery store. You don't have to butt in, but just pay attention to it. Listen for a couple seconds. Who's speaking? How is the other person listening? What's their body language doing? Take a moment, take a snapshot, take a second of your life and think about how you would translate it to the page. So this lady's walking her dog across the street, right? Okay. How would you put that on the page and relay it to somebody? Would you just say a lady walks her dog across the street because you have other things you want to talk about? That's fine. That counts. Or is this lady your main character? Just for this hypothetical exercise. Maybe she's your main character. If she's walking her dog, what's going on? Is she in a hurry? Why is she in a hurry? Is she moving a particular way that you can comment on? How would you describe her movement? How would you describe the leash? How would you describe the dog? Why is she walking this way and not the other way? Is she walking towards something or away from something? Is she walking with a purpose? Is she trying to distract herself? Is she talking to herself? Is she humming? Is she listening to music? Has she got her headphones in or something? Picture it in your head. You're at the grocery store. You're listening to two people argue about the price of oranges. Why? Why are they arguing? How would you write that dialogue? Is everybody using an exclamation point? Or are people just talking? Are they using their hands? How are they using their hands? Who's using their hands? Who's going first? Who's the first speaker? Who's the second? How are they turned to each other? How are they positioned? As they're talking, are they moving? Or are they stuck in one place? Are they moving their head? Are other people happening around them? When you walk down the freezer aisle in the grocery store, do you hear the buzz of the refrigerators? When you drive your car and you go over that one section of street, does the tire make a certain sound? Does the car vibrate a certain way? When you get angry at the landscapers who sit outside your office all day and blow like one leaf from one side to the other, what does that sound like? Think about the experiences of your life as though you were going to translate them into text to someone who wasn't there. And I don't just mean like write a text message. I mean, put it on a draft page, put it into a paragraph, put it with exposition, dialogue, and narration. Try it in first person, try it in third person, try it in second person, try it in whatever person you want, try it in whatever tense you want. But take a moment to think about a thing that happened today or think about a thing that stuck out in your mind. Like 2 days ago, I watched this mother absolutely like paste her kids just up and down about the fact that they left the front door open as they were walking to school. And it stuck out in my mind because I had never heard somebody yell so much on such a quiet street at this hour of the morning. And it really seemed disproportionate. Like she wasn't really yelling about the door. The door was just the sort of the straw that busted the camel's back kind of a thing. But take a moment, whatever it is, and see if you can put it on the page. Doing that, even if you don't do it right, even if you don't do it successfully and perfectly, will give you an opportunity to understand how you shape things. If I were to describe that to you beyond just this lady was like just giving her kids the business about the door being open, if I were to really break it down and talk about what she looked like and what the kids looked like and the faces they were making and the volume of her voice and the way her hands moved and the way the kids didn't make eye contact and how the one daughter got angry and stomped back because mom's just so dramatic, then all these things would paint a picture in your head. Because remember, we're making art. We're trying to put a movie in somebody else's brain. So take a moment of your life, even if it's just you, even if you're just at home and you're pouring a cup of tea, you're wiping off your kitchen counter, you're flipping the channels on the television, you're waiting for the thing to download or whatever. How would you relay that to another human being through text? Would you write a paragraph? Would you write a sentence? Would it be a run-on sentence? Would it be a page? Could you get a whole scene out of it? I mean, yeah, you might have to invent some more shit to build it up, but what if you wrote that verbatim to the best of your knowledge? It doesn't have to be super accurate. Nobody's going to court. But how would you capture that moment so that somebody who wasn't there could read it and understand? That is the best exercise I ever received. I can tell you exactly where I was when I got it. I was in the parking lot with a guy I worked with. He was smoking a Winston Light cigarette out of a soft pack as we were setting up a Marty radio tower to do an AM radio football, high school football broadcast. And we were talking about broadcasting and how he communicates to somebody who's listening on the radio how kids are playing American football. And he said, all you got to do, John, anytime, is translate it to somebody into a way they can picture in their brain. So that's one of my challenge. That's the exercise. Take a thing that you were present for, and how would you write it so that somebody who wasn't there could put it in their brain? Best exercise I ever got. Absolutely, bar none. I still do it. I do it all the time. I do it when I'm talking to myself. I do it when I stream. I do it when I'm walking outside. I do it when I go to therapy. I do it every goddamn where. It helps. Give it a try. Let me know what you think. Are there, as I click over here, are there any other questions? I see people came in and departed and all that. So hello. Thanks for being here. I hope you're well. I'm going to get one more mouthful of tea. Other questions, issues, etc.? Of all the movies I've covered for the Patreon this year, do I have a favorite? Of just this year? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do. Everything all at once. The quantum comedy. Yeah, I think that was my favorite. Certainly my favorite movie to watch because it blew me away so profoundly. I forgot I was doing it for Patreon, and I just got sucked in and I started watching it, and I'm like, holy shit, this is amazing. And I forgot to break it down, and I forgot to walk through it like I normally do. If you're asking me what my favorite Patreon recording was, I think my favorite Patreon recording I've done this entire year. My favorite Patreon recording this year was the first episode of House of Dragon, which was only for the upper tiers, the $10 and the $20 tier. But it was so completely fucking bad that I could not adequately express my shock that someone paid millions of dollars for this. It was bad. And then I've covered it every Tuesday. I cover the finale this coming Tuesday. It stayed bad. And I understand that people love it and they hate Rings of Power, but I loved Rings of Power and I have hated House of the Dragon. And it has stayed bad for me. And as much as I dislike it, I talk about oh God, I got to do another one of these. I have enjoyed going through it because of how bad it is. If you could make a fundamental narrative mistake, this show is going out of its way to make it. What's the dumbest thing you could have happen? Oh, good news. It just happened. What's the worst story choice you could make? Oh, there it is. Look at that. Look, right there on the screen. It's the worst story choice possible. That's my favorite. That's what I like. I like when things are really bad and messy. And the same way that one of my all-time favorite things is the 3.5 hours I did for the first Twilight movie. Because, oh, what a mess that was. But I really enjoyed every second of it. Or the 5 hours I did for King Kong. It was awful, but I love doing it. Or I like it when it's really, really good. and then I don't have so much to talk about, and there's no need for me to like rebuild it or wrap it up. I can just say like, hey, just watch this movie. I like the extremes. The middle stuff where it's just kind of like, okay. Yeah, when it's just okay, whatever, shrug, move on. Tonight's tea was Russian black. Real strong, smells and tastes like lawn, twigs, real earthy. Loved it. I'm almost done. And then I've got 2 liters of water I'm going to chug over the course of the night. Twilight and really the entire YA series. When I did Battle of the YA novels, I've really loved about like 90% of the stuff on Patreon. If you're out there listening to this and you have no idea what I'm talking about, patreon.com/John helps you write better. Every week, I release multiple commentaries on things, whether it's whether it's streaming shows or it's every week a movie or sometimes more than one movie. And you get a writing tool and then you get a commentary on the movie while the movie plays so you can see it as it goes. And then a wrap up that packages all of it together. $2. $2 a month. And of course, if you go to the higher tiers, you get more stuff. I even did Hellraiser 2, and Hellraiser 2 was one of the worst things I've ever seen. I did my best. I ended up watching that thing like 3 times because I watched it and it was really bad. And I ended up calling a friend and I'm like, hey, watch this with me because I'm not sure it's so bad. And then it was worse. And then the 2 of us couldn't believe how bad it was. So we brought in more friends. And I didn't record much of those, but it was bad. Like I even did Rocky 4 with the Russian, where like I'm sitting there next to somebody and the 2 of us are just like, this movie's awful. We thought this movie was way better than it was, and it was not. But I love the Patreon. I love that stuff. Not only because it's a chance for me just to talk into this microphone without this camera, so there's no like stress or pressure about like, oh my God, look at my face and body. But it's also a matter of just like, I can talk to you. You're my friends. And I talk to you like we're just hanging out. And oh, by the way, you've just happened to like wind me up about like, hey, have you seen this movie? What do you think of it? I'm not just going to tell you, oh, it's good, you should like it. I'm going to tell you, like, okay, your fundamental, like, you've got an imbalance in your character structure and your plot twist doesn't work. And if I were going to fix it, here's how I'd fix it because I do this and I do this and I do this. I've covered all the Star Wars movies. I've covered all the Star Trek movies. I've covered YA novels. I covered all the Hunger Games. I've covered Game of Thrones and Rings of Power now. I'm about to finish Rings of Power. Up next is Andor, which we're going to talk. I'm going to go all the way back through the beginning. I know I just did the first 3 episodes already, but I'm going to do even more. I want to go back all the way through the episodes because I want to talk about 1970s spy movies. And I want to talk about when you take a structure and rebuild it around something called narrative intimacy, not intimacy and narrative, but narrative intimacy, and keeping a story grounded even when it's in space. And, also the peripheral, because I don't do a lot of science fiction. I did The Matrix and stuff, but I don't do a lot of science fiction. I'm not sure why. It just never really comes up. People want to talk horror for reasons, or they want to do just a wide array of films. The 2 things I don't talk enough about that I really want to try and do more of going forward, I want to talk more science fiction, like straight science, hard science fiction, dystopic, that kind of thing. And mainstream drama and romance, because they're legit genres just like everything else. Because if you can learn how to tell a good romance novel, if you can learn how to tell a good romance or a romance novel, you can write in like 4 other genres with very minimal changes. And every film gets 3 things. Gets an intro where I try to break down a little tool and talk about the movie as a product, as an object. And then it gets a commentary, which is designed in theory to be played along while you're watching the thing. So I only cover stuff that's streaming somewhere, YouTube, Amazon, whatever, Netflix, streaming somewhere. And then you play me in the background and I'll tell you to pause it. And I'll tell you why to pause it and what's going on. And then we talk about it. And then the third thing you get is a wrap up. It used to just be a full rewrite where I'm like, okay, so here's what worked and here's what didn't. And here's how I would fix it in a new draft. And over time, it is sort of metamorphosed into, here's what worked, here's what was great, here's what needed improvement, here's what could go this way, or here's a repackaging of the tool from the intro, and then, oh, by the way, a rewrite to see the tool in use or to tighten things up. It's sort of like editing it on the fly, but I try not to like invent whole new things. I work with the stuff the story gives us, mainly because I've always been intrigued by that. I've always been intrigued by the idea of, oh man, like I just did Catwoman a couple weeks back, and Catwoman would work loads better if you made like 3 changes, and 2 of them are significant, one of them is kind of minor, and at no point does any of them really have to be Batman. It's interesting though that you can often have a movie that's this close, and it doesn't take much to change a draft or change an idea into something that just really grabs somebody's attention. I love doing the rewrites. I love Patreon stuff. I'm doing more tomorrow because it's a Thursday, and I always try to do some Patreon stuff on Thursday because it makes me happy. So that was my favorite so far. I have a soft spot for the second Top Gun movie, even though it was bananas. This week I'm doing Aragon, the Dragon movie. There are some that the film is done. I got to do all the other stuff tomorrow, but I have some things to say. But for that, you'll have to go to patreon.com/John Helps You Write Better and find that out Friday when that comes out. Any other questions? Any other things? Anythings? I finished the tea. It is time to attack the water. Anything else? Else we will go to the outro. Yes? No? To the outro then. I want to thank each and every single one of you for being here. I want to thank you for going through this. I want to thank you for all the patience and the kindness and the questions and the effort. I want to thank everybody who submitted a question. I want to thank everybody who listens to this. If you are listening to this in podcast form, wherever you get your podcasts, leave a review. It takes little to no time, and it makes huge difference. It's not like a financial difference, but it just means more people get a chance to hear the thing that you just totally loved. And I like reading them because they're fun. Even the bad ones where it's like, John, you're terrible and you swear too much, still makes me laugh. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank everybody for this. If you want more information about anything I've talked about tonight, the best thing you can do is go to johnhelpsyouwritebetter.com and click on the button that says book an appointment, and we'll talk about it. Anything you want. If you're interested in the Patreon stuff or anything else I'm creating, it's patreon.com/johnhelpsyouwritebetter. And I stream here every Wednesday at John Helps You Write Better on Twitch. The next time I'm here, the next time I'm in your ears and in your face will be November the 9th. We'll be right back here for more questions and more stuff. Until then, take care of yourself, wear a mask, wash your hands, be kind to others, put more love in the world than you take. All power to all people. Love and support those who do the things that make your life better and possible. Tell people that they matter to you. Always do good. Be kind. I'll talk to you soon. See ya!